Hey, good evening and welcome everybody. It's Ukraine update on the Shills here, and tonight we're looking at some stories about those fucking orcs throwing shit over the fence again. Biden's heading over to Poland. There's quite a bit of news coming up indeed. And Starsky himself, who we're going to turn to right now, has got some other news for us and some headlines that we need to get to. So I'm going to cue the music and bring the man in himself.
I absolutely love this music. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah, I feel like moshing and slamming and doing crazy things. Tonight we have an update from Ukraine as usual, and this week was dangerous and intense because we had multiple missile strikes as well as drone strikes. Everything started, I think, 2 days ago in the night when Russians started launching their drones like crazy. And around 11 of them were shot down over Kyiv. And approximately there were 2 hits, I think, in around whole Ukraine. Then in the morning they launched sounds like jets flying. In the morning they launched one missile strike on the eastern Ukraine using their S-300 missiles, and later that morning they launched their cruise missiles from the bombers that flew from the Caspian Sea and in the area of Volgodonsk, and after 2 or 3 waves of those launches, they also launched another barrage of missiles from the Black Sea. And in total, this amount of missiles plus the number of missiles that were launched in the morning gives us more than 100 missiles that were launched at Ukrainian cities that day. And we managed to shoot down 61 missile, which is roughly 10. It means that 10% of those reached their targets. There were some damages in Odessa region. We also know that in Dnipro, some of the power infrastructure was damaged, but nothing very serious. And for the last 3 days, we have power like all the time. In my area specifically. So looks like our power grid is improving even despite all of those strikes. Still, we have some deficit, let's call it this way, in different regions, again specifically in Odessa, because the power producing facility was hit there, and we know that as of today, we have approximately roughly 40% of power producing facilities working in Ukraine. But even despite this fact, we still have power in numerous locations in Kyiv. We don't have blackouts in the nights. Again, in my area, we have power 24/7, which is great. And there were some news from the regions in the area of Bakhmut, where my guys are proudly defending this fortress city. We managed to deflect all of the attacks since yesterday and the day before that. Russians bringing a lot of their troops, trying to capture the supply line, specifically the highway that is used to deliver troops and supplies to our guys, but they fail. And even despite the fact that they have some minor artillery control over this highway, but it's still being used and it's still under Ukrainian control. We know that Russians are losing massive number of people that are attacking every day. We know that they're losing a lot of their vehicles and tanks. Numerous videos actually are being posted every day on YouTube as well, showing those Russian casualties. And it looks like their attacks don't have any progress as of this moment. Some of the positions that were previously lost by the Ukrainian armed forces, we managed to return them back. And specifically, we're talking. Just a second, I had it right here. I'm so not prepared today. Here it is.
Problem, buddy.
So according to General Zaluzhny, chief of our general staff of Ukraine, he said that every day at least 50 attacks are being performed by Russian troops, and specifically in the area of Vuhledar and Marinka. Also, some of the positions that were lost by Ukrainian troops in that area, they were returned. We know that Ukrainians are using their artillery, and we know that new artillery arrives to Ukraine almost every day. Currently, Russians cannot have advantage, at least in terms of range and precision. They still have a lot of artillery on their side, but again, they lack shells. That's why they're trying to bring new shells to the east of Ukraine, to their ammo storages. And we also know that they cannot use their artillery effectively, because Ukrainian artillery is very good in terms of counter-battery warfare, and we can strike their artillery because our howitzers and artillery systems have greater range and precision. Hopefully we will receive more. I still hope that we will receive at least 10 times more than we have, because it's fair. And we have to prepare, because this war will be, it will last long time. We know that Russians are bringing their reserves. They want to bring as many men as possible to the east of Ukraine, because they passed this point of no return, and they bet everything on controlling Donbass, at least. So we know that they probably don't have hope of capturing Kyiv once again. They literally don't have so many men. They need at least 6 times as much as they have now. But they still can bring a lot of destruction and casualties and a lot of evil.
I'm right, they can. Holy. I want to just go backwards there. We had a super chat and a member that came in there during the beginning of the show. So we had Elvin Archer, new member. Welcome to Shill Apprentice. Well, thank you for joining the team and the family, Elvin. Awesome. And then we had Jean-Marc Paganel, super chat for $10. Leftist Russian rumor: Ukraine is conscripting 16-year-olds. In Canada, you can join the army at 17 years with parental permission. Can you volunteer for the Ukraine army younger than 18, Starsky?
No, absolutely. You cannot volunteer if you're younger than 18. There are voluntary forces, might be, that can accept such people, but like it's wrong. That's why we don't do that. Again, what we see Russia is doing, right? So they're trying to show how horrific is something that they do themselves. basically, because this narrative of going to the war is bad. People don't want to fight, and people don't want to die, and things like that. It's because this is something that they feel, and they try to project at Ukrainians, who, by the way, defend themselves and their right to exist. So it's like, every time I see Russians do some kind of bullshit, it's literally projecting themselves at Ukrainians,
Very much. Yeah, a couple people were saying, hope my eye gets better soon. Thanks, me too. I don't really like wearing these on a stream, but nobody wants to be playing with I'm playing anyway. We've had quite a few comments and questions come in already, so I'm probably right in assuming we could go right to Dave for a little interaction here.
Yeah, sure thing. We've got one from last week. We want to clean up our business. So there's one from Teddy Ted, who said, Starsky, please comment on latest Perun and how US financial aid in financial amount is actually much lower than stated. They are sending a lot of old stuff that they would get rid of, and it costs them money to store. So Ukraine is saving them money by taking their old stuff. Kind of like if I sent stained clothes I won't wear to charity. If I gave dollar values for replacement, IRS would not be happy with me. There we are.
I can say that some of the stuff that arrives to Ukraine is not very fresh. For example, M777s that we have, they are very, very good, very precise, but we have like older generation of those howitzers. They are not as good as those new ones, and they are not as, let's say, as reliable. But at the same time, they are still better than what Russians have, because Russian army and Russian progress, something that doesn't exist. It's like it's years behind NATO, okay, if not decades. Probably not century, even though they use those Mosin rifles that were created when people were conquering Wild West, but still, they have much older and much more primitive weaponry, tanks and stuff, artillery as well, that still cannot compete with what West is giving us. On the other hand, I would be very, very happy if it was the position of Western countries to just deliver all kinds of crap to Ukraine. I would be very, very happy for one reason, because we would instantly receive like thousands of vehicles, which doesn't happen because some country gives us like 14, some country gives us 30, and things like that. It's again, considering the fact that Russians have 6,000 tanks that they can bring to Ukraine, it's kind but ridiculous. Okay, we need more than that. So I would be really happy if we could help West to dispose of their old tanks.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on that question, yesterday the Andrei Yermak, who is the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, tweeted, quote, "The issue of long-range weapons and fighter jets for Ukraine has been resolved. Details a little later." Can you elucidate on that tweet at all?
I think that soon we will see long-range weapons delivered to Ukraine. We know exactly that the UK will help us with the long-range weapons. As for fighter jets, I'm expecting those news myself, because if Ukraine is given like F-16s, I will probably quit the National Guard and become a pilot because it's so cool.
Well, it takes 2 years to learn to fly one of those, does it not?
I don't really care. Again, I have like 10,000 hours in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I can pass those exams much faster, I think.
Fair enough. There are rumors. Oh, please,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I will have only one try, of course, but
Well, in my experience, my understanding is actually flying them isn't all that difficult, and getting them off the ground isn't all that difficult. It's landing them that's the trick. So at a minimum, you'll at least get to fly it once. We've also heard rumors that a number of Ukrainian pilots have gone missing, and are perhaps in the United States learning to fly F-16s right now, that there'd be no benefit in handing F-16s over. The Ukrainians know how to fly the old Warsaw Pact MiGs, but once they learn how to fly the F-16s and fly them properly, well, properly is not. It's a different beast. So fly them as F-16s are intended to be flown, that those pilots will come back with the F-16s. Is that something that you are cautiously optimistic about, that you think about? What are your thoughts? These are rumors, so there's no way, they haven't been verified by any stretch of the imagination, but we've heard it more than once.
From what I know from Dennis Davidov, he told me that it can take a couple of months to, let's say, officially, it will take a lot of months to transfer pilot of MiG-29 to a cockpit of F-16. But Dennis Davidov told me that actually in our case it can take much less time, probably like a couple of months. And what else? As for our missing pilots, I think because none of my acquainted pilots called me and invited me for a barbecue or fishing, I suspect that probably they're spending their time like abroad somewhere, which is great.
Dick, that's a confirmation in my book. I think you can say it's been broken now on the Shills. You guys have the exclusive on the story. Starsky just he wasn't invited to the barbecue. That's good enough for me.
There we go. Yeah, heard it right here, folks. I'm going to switch into super chat mode here real quick. We've got level 70. We're $13.99. Thanks, level 70. Hi, Starsky. There has been a big debate whether some Russian missiles went through Romanian airspace. Is there any more information on whether this occurred?
According to our information, what we saw using our radars, yes, those two missiles went through the airspace of Moldova, and then they passed a small corner of airspace that belonged to Romania. Also, NATO stated that there was not a big danger for Romanians because of those missiles. But I would like to know what would those people say if their kids were in Romania at that moment and had Russian cruise missiles flying over their heads. Probably it would be a different resolution. So that's the information. I can bet my kidney that NATO will not react even if like some 3 Russian cruise missiles explode in the field in France somewhere, because nobody died. I mean, it's totally fine. Because one of the biggest fears of NATO is that things will escalate and they will have to actually fight Russians. But on the other hand, I think they don't need to be afraid because Ukraine will protect NATO.
That's what they're doing so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
No, I mean, literally by the war being in Ukraine, NATO doesn't have to get involved, does it?
Yeah.
Ukraine is literally the shield for all of Europe at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfairly.
Mm.
I
But perhaps wisely.
I hope
Mhm.
this will give us at least a discount in McDonald's.
Yeah,
The true
right. you
value.
All
know?
service,
Yeah.
all
You'd
service
think-
members, all service members at McDonald's do get a 10% discount.
KFC too. And I demand 12% at least.
Oh God, Starsky, this is what it's just. It's there's always something
Every
with you,
week.
isn't there? It's just yeah.
Hey, if you don't ask, you don't get. You should keep pushing. They'll do it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
like,
Claire.
like Zelensky does. I mean, he's a good example. He's pushing and forcing
Yes.
everybody to help us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Claire's got something she wanted to bring up here. Great talking point.
Yes, I was quite concerned about SpaceX comments recently. Just a little back history. Elon Musk had donated Starlink, I believe, and there were some countries like our United States here that contributed to some of the components to make it easier for Ukraine to use this system. And there's some pushback on SpaceX, which didn't really understand. They were actually saying that it's not being used the way they intended, that perhaps by using it to man drones or whatever, they're making some kind of accusation there that it's not really what they wanted, and that they can do something about. This is what bothered me. We can and have the ability to do something about it, which to me sounded like a little bit of shady, thready thing there. And but then when we look back, there's been no change in Starlink service absolutely at all for months in Ukraine. Do you see any change in the way Starlink is in Ukraine right now, the way you're able to use it or the way you're going forth? And also, I did see one of the advisors of Zelensky come forward quite strongly against them and say, well, if there's all those kind of parameters, like, why don't you tell us what we should be doing kind of message. And I'm paraphrasing here, but that's definitely the attitude that I got from the statement that he made. How is it there? Like, what do you hear about it? Because this really unnerved me a bit that they would say something like that.
Starlink in Ukraine continues to suck because our upload speed, sometimes it's even less than 5 megabits per second. But I'm using private Starlink, and Starlinks that are used by the armed forces of Ukraine. They are registered for Pentagon, so I think that this is one way that SpaceX can control the Starlink service for the armed forces of Ukraine. And also, there's some specific protocols for using SpaceX Starlink for controlling drones specifically. So they can also use that. I'm not using my drone a lot. That's why, because I don't have one, and that's why I cannot tell you. But I think that it's possible to to make using drones with Starlink impossible.
Right.
Well,
That's what they used, the word weaponized. Like, they didn't want Starlink weaponized in that way, which, I mean,
What they said was basically they don't want Ukrainian army to use Starlink for offensive purpose.
right.
On the other hand, it's not like Ukraine is invading Rostov or Moscow or whatever. We are defending.
You're defending. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally like, I don't want you to use Starlink to kill invaders.
Wait, but see, that's how do they put those kind of parameters on it, though? I mean, I can see that they don't want you to use it to, like, go in there and get secret things and go and attack, on Russian territory like that. You're protecting yourselves. That's what was so offensive to me about it, putting it out there. And then to cause that kind of controversy now, we're a year in. Like,
Well,
what?
Yeah, the reason is, like, what I see in Musk's actions is that he completely recognizes independence of the annexed territories.
Mhm.
He completely recognizes the politics that are being promoted by Russia. He completely supports the idea of basically destroying Ukraine as a nation. In my opinion, it's like not his words, because verbally he says that he supports Ukraine,
Mhm.
but at the same time, his actions is a good example of completely opposite position.
Mhm.
So he like what he says in his Twitter, he offers negotiations, like you gotta negotiate the way you will be killed, right?
Oh,
Yeah, you gotta negotiate the way you will be killed.
wow.
It's like there was this poll about like should people living in some territory decide the future of this territory, meaning the Donbass and Crimea, even though it's a fact recognized internationally that those territories were annexed by force by presence of Russian army there.
Mhm.
And it wasn't choice of those people, because between 1991 and 2014, beginning of 2014, Donbass never raised this question of being independent or autonomous until Russia invaded Donbass. It never happened. When Ukraine voted for its independency in 1991, Donbass, more than 80% of people of Donbass voted for independent Ukraine. They didn't want to be part of Russia. So Musk has this influence. I think he's influenced very much by Russian propaganda, obviously, because he has a lot of friends and because he's a famous businessman. Of course, he has friends among some conservative representatives, some conservative supporters of Russian terrorism, because there are different conservatives in the United States, and those that support Russian terrorism, basically they share the same narratives that Russia shares, and what Russia shares should not be, let's say, should not be listened by anybody, because Russia can only produce bullshit in huge amounts. That's the only thing that this country can produce well.
Well, let's just for a second, let's just assume that they're right and that they somehow did want to secede. Let's just give them that for a moment. For anybody in the United States to propose that, well, then they should obviously be a part of Russia, seems to be forgetting our own history. The United States itself would not allow parts of itself to secede. So I find it a bit hypocritical that we would be considering allowing the position to say, well, we should let them go because that is, or Ukraine should let them go because they clearly want to be some part of Russia. It's like, no, that's not how countries function. And anybody who would say that, again, is ignorant of history of even the United States.
Yeah, for example, imagine that at some point people in Texas decide that they want to have Spanish as their official language, and assume that they say that they want to join Spain or Mexico.
I would say, God bless, have a good time. I will be the first to sign the paperwork. So I'm sorry. I have a thing with Texas.
Theoretically, okay. Imagine that they decide this, and at some point, United States, right, decides to protect itself because it cannot function like this. It goes against all rules. And the main reason is that borders are internationally recognized, right? For many years. Many years ago, people gathered in the United Nations and they decided that the borders that exist, they cannot be changed. and
Mhm.
deal with it. Okay, countries that people that live in those countries, they have to deal with it somehow. Join alliances, join international organizations. If they don't have some kind of resources, they can exchange resources, trade, and whatever, and do everything to develop themselves, their economics and things like that. But they have what they have, right? They have their country within recognized borders.
Mm.
This is how international politics work. This is how world works nowadays. It's not like at some point some guys that have that speak Spanish, that look like Spanish, that have Spanish weapons and Spanish vehicles. They appear out of nowhere in Texas, and they say, I cannot mimic Spanish accent, but they say, "We are Texans, and we decided that we don't want to be part of the United States." You know.
Yeah, I mean, a
But-
better
but we are
analogy for
local.
this would be
We are
if
local.
Russia.
Yeah, and then they start burning American flags. They start burning the flag of Texas. They start capturing administrations and police stations. And when people in Texas like go, what the hell, and they start defending themselves, then let's say Mexico decides to bring their troops there to save people of Mexico, and the war starts. It sounds like an absurd, but it is exactly what happened in Ukraine, except for Mexicans. I completely love those people. Like it's just for example, okay. Same stuff happened there. So state must protect itself. The main goal of any state is to protect itself, but states don't protect themselves by preventively invading other countries, because only Hitler did that. So modern states don't do that. It's wrong.
Yeah. We've got a few super chats I'm going to jump in and get to here, and then we'll swing over to Dave for a couple of viewer questions and whatnot. So we've got Anthony Bestwick for £5 says suggestions for you to pass up chain of command, create a website to sell copies of regiment or battalion insignia to sell. Oh yeah. Good suggestion, actually. Thanks there, buddy. Awesome. We got My God 1103. That's how I like to say it. Not sure if I'm right there. $10. Slava Ukraini. Big shout out. Thanks, Oh My God. Anthony Bestwick's again in for £2. 2 words to solve X-16 training. Flying tigers. Oh, good words. Good words. And then we got level 70 in for $6.99. Hi, Starsky. I heard Ukraine has its own satellite, which it purchased from Finland. Could Ukraine use it for drones instead of Starlink?
No. The satellite that is used by Ukraine is for surveillance only. So we make high resolution images of the terrain, and that's its only purpose. There are communication satellites that have proper equipment installed in them, and they can be used for communication purpose. But those satellites are just for surveillance. And it's a crazy story, by the way, because we have one very, very famous charity volunteer here in Ukraine. Like everybody knows him because he's very funny, he's cool, and he's a stand-up comedian, by the way. So he gathered enough funds to buy a freaking satellite, and it was like, he was like, before he announced this, because he kept it in secret, he was like, tomorrow I will announce some crazy news, and it will be much more than Bayraktars. And we were all like trying to figure out like what can it be. and my idea was that he probably bought some kind of like airplane, like bomber, and we talked with my friends, and there were like different versions. Someone said that he bought like a factory to produce our own long-range drones, like strike drones or kamikaze drones. Yeah, and next day he told us, he announced that it was a satellite, and it was like for the first time in history, basically Ukrainian people and our supporters from abroad funded a freaking satellite for Ukraine for the surveillance. It's crazy.
Wow. Okay. So let's see here. Where do we go to? Oh, we were heading over to Dave for a couple of the viewer questions.
Does 401 have something? Oh, there's quite a few hands going up.
Yeah.
They seem keen.
Okay, it's up and down. It's up and down. I don't think the flipper knows what the penguin's doing. Dave, bring in a question. We'll wait for Commander to figure it out here. Hold on.
Sure thing. Okay, there was one here from Ali, who's been a member for 2 months. Ask Starsky to give Fooch a belly rub for us.
I just did. I swear.
Alvin Archer, we definitely need to mention because they're a new member and I think it's their birthday today, so they get their question, of course. Do you know if Starsky has any unit patches left? I would love to buy one to go with my UAAF1 I got from Colonel Sanchenko. Today is my birthday, so Prezi to my... Wait, that's not worded properly. Today is my birthday, so Prezi to buy myself. Yes.
Can you please contact me by my email? It's operator.starsky@gmail.com. I will send you a free patch. It will take some time though, because I had 15 patches that I ordered for myself and to give out to to friends. But people found out about this, and I ran out of patches. I still have a couple of them for myself, basically for my uniform, but we are figuring out with Rudy Ruchil how to make new patches, and they will be very cheap, of course, like it's a patch. But unfortunately, they will not be for to give out, because those are they were depleted, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. What can you do? Let's see here. Did you have any more you wanted to get in, Dave? And then I think we're going to turn over to Claire because she's got another news brief to bring in, and we'll get on. Did we lose him?
No. Dave, you're muted. So.
Damn. Always there's once every few months that happens. You almost lost me. You were getting excited then, Claire.
You get my hopes up and then.
Anyway, what I was saying is that there's quite a few questions on ammo or supplies or something like that. So I'll probably save them for one big sort of question later. So instead, Mary Tyson's got one. What is happening with the nuclear plant? Assume you know what that means, which one it is.
Yeah, the Russians were they were. Let me shape my thoughts a bit. So there's this water reservoir, this channel used to cool down the reactor, and they completely dried it out. So it puts this reactor, this whole power plant, basically under a huge risk, because if it lacks water, it can explode, of course. So currently we're monitoring the situation. Again, there are people from the UN monitoring mission, the nuclear mission, that observed the situation as well. But because we're talking about the UN, basically they are useless, and they cannot change anything, because in such case you need I don't know, army of people to bring there and liberate the power station or do something. But my biggest fear actually is that one day we will just be witnesses to a freaking nuclear disaster, because Russians played fire and smoke near a nuclear power station, and everybody will be just like, oh my god, it's so ridiculous.
Scary.
The impotency of the UN actually makes me so sick, guys. I cannot explain it.
I couldn't agree more. I've got a couple of shout outs to do here, and then we're going to turn to Claire for some current happenings. I've got Liam Wakefield, member shout out. Thanks, Liam. Slava Canada too, because they gave us Rush, and I couldn't agree more. Love the band. Absolutely. Ohm, member for 2 months, just gifted a membership over to Silver Earth. So big shout to Ohm and welcome Silver Earth. Family member. Awesome. And we have BC Skyman came in with the $10 super chat. Does Operator Starsky know of a large Russian offensive that is supposed to take place February 24th? I family and friends living in Ukraine and are very concerned. Slava Ukraini. Good question.
This invasion basically already started. It started with offensive in Vuhledar, and maybe it didn't start at full scale, but we will see it soon, because Russians keep bringing their reserves to Donbass. But it's I cannot say that it's upcoming. It's already started, because they already have a lot of their professional soldiers, if we can call them this way. all of those mobics, they're already here, and also they started recruiting convicts in Crimea. So even despite the fact that Prigozhin said that they won't do that anymore, but they keep recruiting them in Crimea. We have information regarding this.
Okay, so let's go to Claire here.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I saw that I wanted to ask you about, Starskis, was that President Biden is going to be visiting Poland again this year. It's been a year. It's February. The last time he was there was like March, after the war had first started last year. So, he says he's going to be pushing for unity in actually aiding Ukraine and in coming together, all of the countries, make sure that we're pushing forward. Well, how is the message being received in Ukraine when he's also said things like no to some of the biggest things you guys need recently, and there's been some delays on our end in getting things through? I know you got the tanks. I see that finally, if I'm correct, that went through, and you guys should be getting those Abrams and things like that. But on the F-16s, I know that keeps going back and forth. It's all rumors, like Nick had brought up. We only hear the rumors, and yet we think that there's training going on. But then publicly, Biden has said no. So, how is that message being received? If he's going to go to Poland and actually start with a unification message, and we're all supposed to be doing that.
I think what he meant was not yet.
Oh, okay, that could be it.
Because he was saying the same thing about tanks, and everybody else were saying the same thing about tanks. And currently, everybody wants to bring tanks. The question is the number of those tanks. That's the biggest concern.
So, Also, I saw that Kamala Harris would be going to one of the big conferences too, where they'll be discussing the Ukraine war again. And I'm sure it does get disconcerting when you have everybody else there doing all the talk and not actually the stuff coming through. It can be frustrating. Well, I guess on their end, you said like Biden had said, not necessarily no, but like not yet. Do you think that helps to say not yet so that other people don't think it's resolved, so that more people will step up and actually do something? You can actually end up with more people contributing and sending the things that you need.
Of course, we expect that people will step up and support us with their voices, because it's very important. And basically that's what people do. I can say that those American senators that don't support Ukraine, they're under big pressure in their areas. And not only them, also those politicians in Europe. There's a huge war, actually, for supporting Ukraine. Because, again, we know that a lot of politicians were actually bought by Russia. Russia spent a huge amount of money, approximately $300 million, on buying loyalty of different people around the world, different opinion makers. So currently there's a huge war, and common people united around Ukraine to fight against Russian terrorism. We all appreciate it, and we expect that this war will continue. Of course, people are getting tired, but we are getting killed.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, to have an allies there so close, we know how important for America there, but where a lot of our troops are right there in Poland, and that is one of the main ways that we actually get the aid to you going through there. It's got to be, to me, it seems frustrating for them to be there with the anniversary coming up, this month being one of the toughest, and with the rumors, the great rumors that we keep hearing more and more of a huge Russian offense to be happening like any time now. I would imagine you guys get tired of the talk, and especially so close with them right there in Poland and right there at the Munich conference, and just waiting. Does Zelensky have any plans on addressing it like publicly?
That's the worst thing, because we don't have like months or weeks, even days.
Right.
Because every minute counts. Every minute Ukrainian soldier dies on a battlefield. So we don't have so much time as some people may think. Again, Russians are bringing crazy amount of people, 500,000 troops, up to 500,000 troops. And it's not the end, because they can still bring more. They can launch another mobilization and bring even more people. So we're talking that this war will last for years, probably. And the only thing we can do is basically eliminate as many Russian troops as possible, as many invaders as possible.
Yeah.
That's our policy. That's our doctrine. And by the way, recently, Ministry of Interior announced the formation of assault brigades. My brigade will be among them, and the operative brigades of the National Guard of Ukraine will be specifically used to deoccupy territories and eliminate Russian troops. Those brigades received some kick-ass names. My brigade is now called the Frontier, because in Ukrainian it sounds like Rubish. You probably understand. And there is some kick-ass brigade called Rage, and everybody wants to get recruited because it's so cool. So those brigades will be formed in the National Guard. There are also assault brigades that will be created in the armed forces of Ukraine. There will be some specific units created in the police, in the police forces, and some other structures.
Oh, that's good. Oh, so
It's like we all understand that maybe not the only method, but the most effective method to have this to retaliate on Russian terrorists for all the evil they brought to Ukraine, everything they destroyed, all the people they killed, is to physically eliminate them. And it will take time. It will take a lot of efforts. It will take probably years. But if you cannot change situation, start enjoying this situation. That's all.
Exactly. And that's, I think, what concerned me so much about the prior Starlink comment, and even something like this that is going on, because you say you're pro-Ukraine, and that the invasion of your country was wrong, is being done against your will. And then they have the nerve to speak out about how you're going to keep it back too much. Like, instead of being there, you can't really tell someone how to actually conduct themselves under those conditions. I know they have to keep, or how they feel about it on a certain right for their political reasons or whatever. But if you support Ukraine, you support Ukraine. Enough.
Well,
support them. Yes.
The Starlink thing is more, I think, about money than anything else. Starlink,
unfortunately,
cost 700 million for SpaceX, 700 million a year. Musk sent a letter in September of last year, sent a letter to the Pentagon saying that he wanted the Pentagon to pick up at least part of the tab. And it was only after, presumably, they declined that he pointed out that, well, they're using it for offensive military. We don't mind defensive military, but the offensive we do mind. But in that letter, he explicitly stated that he was aware of their military uses of it and had no objection at that time. It was only after the Pentagon said they wouldn't pick up the tab that SpaceX started saying that they had a moral concern about, quote, offensive, which just means what you had said earlier, the drones and stuff.
And that's unfortunate with Musk, because he does that often. And I didn't really want to focus on that part, because everybody knows I'm not really pro-Musk as it is. His financial woes that he has right now is not Ukraine's problem. When he came out there and got all the publicity for this move to make it available to them, he garnered on all of that and actually said he was pro-Ukraine and that they needed all the assistance, and what was happening was wrong, and however they used it. Put no parameters on it, but then come after the fact and throw a little shade in there because things aren't going his way and he can't use it to his advantage anymore. That's the kind of stuff I want to call out right now. Most of the things I'm pointing out in the media and asking Starsky about right now is the hypocrisy of those that can do better. And unless we speak up and say, hey, we see you for this two-facedness, you either support or you don't. Support is the thing that needs to be done. If you support them, let us see us. None of this back talking there and, on the other end. You can't have it both ways. There's no fence sitting in war. Am I right, Starsky? There's no fence sitting in war.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't.
The federal government put out, I think it was 800 or 880 something billion dollars, or close to $900 billion for the startup costs of Starlink. If he pulls the plug, everyone contact your representatives and ask for that money back.
He's not insane enough to pull the plug. I'll tell you that. That would be the end of Elon Musk.
Well, he's already reduced it. Starlink reported 2 days ago that they've actually reduced the offensive capabilities of Starlink.
Then that's what we need to be talking about, because that's wrong. They use that for surveillance. Okay, that surveillance is important for protection. If you're supporting Ukraine and that they were invaded against their will, then surveillance is really important. They need to know what's coming. They need to know what's going on. They need to protect their people. It's about the people of Ukraine too, not the war itself. That's just wrong. I think that's just wrong. So much.
Yeah. We've
Well,
Yeah, I have a small information regarding the upcoming attack. It's according to our officials. And we all remember that Ukraine will receive a couple of hundreds armored vehicles and approximately 300 tanks from our allied countries. Meanwhile, our military estimate that Russia already has 1,800 tanks, almost 4,000 armored vehicles, almost 3,000 artillery systems, not including 800 Soviet-era multiple rocket launch systems, 400 fighter jets, and 300 helicopters ready for this new wave of attack that we will see the upcoming weeks. That's why I'm saying that we need like 10 times more than that.
right.
Right.
I got a super chat to do here quick, and then we'll get right back to where we were here. We've got Elvin Archer, new member too. Awesome. Love to have you around. 10 pound shout. Is that a euro? With these damn shades on, I can't even tell. Sorry. Sorry about my typing. Laugh out loud, Starsky. That would be awesome. Happy to pay for it. We'll email you ASAP. Oh, this is from earlier when you were giving the email out there, Starsky. Hugs to you and Fletch. Stay safe and well. Slava Ukraini. Oh, cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah, again, it will take some time because like I didn't have enough time to sleep. Now I have like 10 times less than that, unfortunately. But I will definitely do that because there are people who wrote me emails regarding those patches. I will deliver those patches for free, of course. But again, those patches that will be made by Rudy Ruchel, they will not cost much, but they will not be free because their production basically costs something.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So I think we should go to Dave for a couple of viewer questions, and we'll get regrouped in the background for another segment.
Sure. I can confirm as well that was pound sterling. That's real money. There was a question earlier from I think you've already answered it really. Kellen Dunn, are we really seeing a Russian offensive right now, or do you expect a bigger offensive soon? If you've got anything else to say on that, that's fine. I can just move on.
We expect that Russians will advance simultaneously in the area of Donbass, Donetsk and Luhansk regions, as well as Kharkiv and probably Zaporizhia. So when they start moving, we will be basically notified about this advance that it basically started.
Good info. Mr. E-Man, is the equipment being adequately maintained and supplied with ammunition? It's very important. No point having a gun without the bullets.
Yeah, of course. So the rifles and machine guns that are being delivered to Ukraine, they are being delivered together with rounds, of course. This is the way they are packed. Basically, they are shipped together. Because again, when you receive your rifle, you gotta make sure that you set everything properly, that it's that you can aim it and stuff like that. And of course, you have spent some time training to operate this new weaponry. So usually they are shipped together with the ammo.
Yeah, otherwise it just turned into a Tarantino movie where you've just got the butt of the gun, you're just smashing them in the back of the head with it or something.
Yeah, there were cases. So I remember that in 2015, in my police battalion, we had two. How do you call it? FN Mini-Me, basically. It's a 5.56 millimeter light machine gun. That we had two of those in my battalion, which is like cool, but we only had 1,000 rounds, so we couldn't use it much. We used a bunch of rounds to to set the aim and everything, but But we never used it on the front lines.
Operator Starsky, realistically, so that no one is surprised, what can we expect? If you can share this, what can we expect? What will happen when the Russians get ready for their own bloodbath? Because I'm assuming you guys are going to kill far more of those, recently conscripted armchair warriors than they will do of you. But what can we reasonably expect so no one is surprised? If you can share that.
Yes, there are two scenarios. Let's say, the most logical scenario is that Russians will bring a lot of troops. It will take us 1 year to kill them. Of course, we will lose a lot of people. A lot of our towns will be destroyed in process of this war. A lot of our towns will be destroyed. Some of the towns will be captured and recaptured and liberated and things like that. So this will continue for a year. And of course, Ukrainian infrastructure will degrade. A lot of people will die, and our economics will also degrade big time, because people will have to fight rather than work and bring taxes to the state and things like that.
Yeah.
It will take a year or two. Then Russians will bring more men, simply because they have more, bigger population than Ukraine. And if this continues like that and nothing changes, and also weaponry comes to Ukraine at the same rate as today, then eventually, maybe in 10 years of bloody fight, Ukraine will lose and Russians will capture Ukraine. Then they will wait a couple of years, regroup their troops, and congratulate the world. They will say big thank you for everything they did by helping Ukraine. And they will invade probably Finland, because Finland is not yet a member of NATO. They will invade a bunch of other smaller countries like Moldova. And at some point, they will invest more money into informational warfare. They will buy more opinion makers on the West. There will be some very, very big political figures that at some point start saying, look at what Russia does. They are so angry. We must negotiate. We must give them what they want. And they will say, we are the most peaceful people on earth. We don't want to spill blood. We want to fix everything peacefully, through diplomacy, through negotiations, and they will start, doing basically what they do now. And then eventually, I don't know, Taiwan will fall again, because Russia will start supporting China in this regard. I don't think that there will be some kind of direct confrontation versus NATO troops. Rather, they will use their strongest weapon, which is their propaganda and bribing opinion makers. And they can invest a lot of money in this, because currently they cannot do that. They are losing a lot of money. They're losing more than $100 million a day because of this war, and almost up to $200 million per day. And because the war will stop, because Ukraine is no more, and Finland is no more, and Moldova is no more, they will regroup. They will refresh their forces, collect enough funds, and start bribing people on the West. Of course, they will continue funding far left and far right extremist groups and parties on the West. And eventually you will find yourself in a very strange situation, because the life, like stable, peaceful life that you had is no more.
Gone.
And that's exactly what Russia tries to do, and they will keep implant those ideas in people's heads that. But look at Russia. Russia lives peaceful conservative life, close to nature. Everything is good. We don't fight. We don't have extremism. We don't have racial prejudice. Everything is fine. We pray God. That's what's gonna happen. So the only thing that can stop this, if you still want to live in your world as you know it, right, is basically this war must stop in Ukraine, better in Russia, of course. But in order for this to happen, something either must change in Russia in terms of their political situation, in terms of economical situation. When Russians stop traveling around Europe like tourists and having rest and spending very nice time while Ukrainians are dying, and when at some point they realize that they don't really care if the world hates them. Absolutely, because they do that all the time.
Yeah,
they are raised.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah,
right?
They are raised with this idea that Westerners are stupid. Russians are more prepared for this life because their life is tough, and they're proud of this. They don't have toilet; they can take toilet in Ukraine, right? They don't have a TV; they can come to Ukraine, kill people, and take a TV. Like it's so cool. This is what makes them Russian, basically. And that's why we should, like everybody in the world, we should realize that we're dealing with some, let's say, not very smart, but very tough enemy. And it's not like partner. It's not like, I don't know, people we can have negotiation with. First of all, we have to defeat them, and then we gotta have negotiations with them. Otherwise, our kids will be in the same situation as Ukrainians are right now. So that's the thing. If things keep going as they do right now, that's the whole point of this speech. If things keep going as they do now, if we receive same amount of weapons, same small amount of weapons, if we receive same amount of ammunition and tanks, of course, and if we keep losing men while Russia keeps bringing men because they have like four times bigger population in Ukraine, that's the only reason why they will win this war. We can try, and that's our goal. We will be doing all we can to eliminate as much Russian personnel as we can.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no other choice for us. Absolutely. And the fact that we don't have other way, because we will die as a nation, we will be eliminated as a nation by Russians if we just give up or negotiate our killing, that's the only reason why we will keep doing this and enjoy it, of course, because you always enjoy if you're doing a great job.
Operator Starsky.
On the other hand, if something changes, and we're talking about some global changes, either in Russia, politically, or economically, or socially, by the way, or we're talking about some new weaponry and some solid support and solid guarantee of Ukrainian
Right.
security, then this will change. But I don't see it coming, unfortunately.
Right.
So I only see this worst scenario where everything depends on how many invaders we will be able to kill.
Right.
A
Couple of
British
super
Justice.
chats. Sorry, here 401. I got a couple of super chats. Got to get in. We've got generic username. I love that very much. $2. Starsky, can you please give us a Futch update?
So before this stream started, and the reason why I got late, I was cuddling Fitch. I do it from time to time.
Nice, nice. And then we have here from level 70 for 699. Hi, Starsky. Ukraine has already destroyed over 3,200 Russian tanks. How many working tanks do they have left? I heard a lot of them were actually used for parts and whatnot.
4,200 tanks were destroyed. They also have 1,800 that are prepared for this next upcoming invasion, plus almost 4,000 armored vehicles, which makes it 6,000 armored vehicles in total, right, including tanks. So those 6,000 vehicles will be used to continue to launch this offensive in the springtime, and they will also have something like maybe 4,000 tanks in their storages. Maybe 4,000. I don't have the exact number of tanks that we managed to capture. I know that 3,000 tanks were destroyed. A bunch were captured, maybe like 800, something like that. Which means that they still have almost 6,000 tanks. 2,000 of them will be used in this upcoming offense.
Okay. And then Ellie J for £5 comes in with, my hubby did 3 tours of Bosnia, including with UN, which he hated as he wasn't allowed to intervene. He's a veteran Royal Engineer for 25 years. Ooh, somebody who actually knows their way around well, too. Nice shout there, Ellie J. Thank you. Thank you. I think we're to Commander 401 for comment, question, or something or other.
Being that the most powerful tool the Russians have is their informational warfare, can you light a fire under everyone here to give an idea of what they will do to your brain if they are allowed to have you under their clutches for a good amount of time? Because that's what actually frightens me the most about them.
They do bad things to your brain because people who went through Russian brainwashing, they require some rehabilitation. You cannot just tell them like, dude, what you know is like wrong, doesn't work this way. They require some help from specialists. And what they do is basically they create this very, very dangerous world full of Nazi, ugly, gay Westerners who are Nazi, of course, at the same time. And at the same time, they want to kill you. And all kinds of, like Zog, the Zionist occupational government, all kinds of reptilians and yada, yada. And then they create this small, beautiful world in which you live, your comfortable bubble, that is basically guarded by a small amount of brave Russian people who want to change this world and who want to live peacefully. But nobody lets them, of course. That's why they invade everybody.
And if you don't think this world is far off from you, some lady tried to evangelize me, and I said I was Jewish, and then we got into politics, and she says, "You're a Nazi." because Democrats are Nazis. And then I start singing the Shema, and I can sing songs in Hebrew in front of her, and she's screaming at me, as long as you're a Democrat, you're a Nazi. So you have the person singing songs in Hebrew and having the Christians scream at them that they're Nazis.
I have some crazy Christian joke here. Let me just remember how it sounds correctly. So, man comes to rabbi, right? Rabbi,
Yep, rabbi.
rabbi, yeah. Jewish man comes to rabbi and says, "I have a problem." It's a Christian joke. Okay, don't get offended. And he's like, "What's the problem?" And he's like, "My son got baptized. He changed his religion to Christianity." Rabbi is like, "I gotta consult with the God. Let's hear what he says." And the next day he meets that man, and he says, I asked the God. He said he has the same problem.
Oh, and on that note, as far as a lot of people don't know this, like in America, when someone's family came here before the rise of the Soviet Union and the collapse of Tsarist Russia, and they were Jewish, and they say, well, we were Russian Jews. No, odds are you were either Polish Jew, Belarusian Jew, or Ukrainian Jew, because you ever heard the term beyond the pale? Jews were not allowed to go into Russia proper.
Yeah, it's true. In Russia, they have some badass like anti-Semitic movement, and that's what I see from commentaries. Because in commentaries, they of course they blame America, but in Russia they have this opinion, which is widespread, that America is basically controlled by Jewish people. And they blame like Jewish people for all the problems that they have in Russia, all the poverty and things like that. If people are drinking, that's because Jewish people sell them alcohol. That's the reason. So we used to joke like that evil Americans poop in their houses, throw syringes in their children playgrounds, and things like that. And basically Obama himself does that because he hates so much. And sometimes he poops in their own pants. Because it's ridiculous. They blame Jewish a lot for all that, and it's a fact. In my YouTube and other social media, I receive those commentaries like all the time, specifically because Ukrainian president is Jewish. That's like they have like jackpot because Ukrainian president is Jewish.
Right. So they try to tie it all in, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, Rogozin, who was member of far-right extremist group called RNU, Russian National Unity, he was a frequent guest at different protests against Jewish people in Russia. There are pictures online, and he became a chief of the Russian space program. So if you want to be successful in Russia, you gotta hate Jews, basically.
Yeah. But Starsky, for the neighboring countries, there were two things on Twitter that kind of hit me kind of strong. One was basically the use of Romanian airspace for just 2 missiles that came through, right through Romania before they hit Ukraine. And there, I was wondering why I saw so many tweets on it. I'm talking like 10,000 tweets on just those 2 missiles. Can you tell me how concerning that was for Ukraine, or what this could be about? Because they're really not saying anything, except Ukrainian airspace just put out the announcement that that's what happened. That's what I'm seeing. And people are just putting it everywhere. Is there of concern?
I think the biggest concern is that I think probably Nick could explain it better than me, but the biggest concern was that can those missiles be interpreted as a direct threat to a NATO state?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the official response from NATO was they weren't dangerous for the
Mhm.
NATO state.
Okay, so in other words, they just flew over, so no, but it does kind of like give permission too. It's like that's a NATO state, and they to use their airspace to get to you guys
Absolutely,
is there's a problem in my eyes. Yeah, yours
yeah,
too.
and we will see that such cases will be more frequent from now
Mhm.
on because NATO did not react
Right.
on this at all.
Mhm.
And basically, a terrorist state can do that again.
Right. It that kind of brings me to Moldova. Recently, the step down of their prime minister, and actually it looks like they'll be voting in this aide who's very pro getting into the EU rather, and is moving towards that because there's been some tension between Moldova and Russia right now in communications and things like that. So it looks like a state like Russia's going to be pushing back is what people are saying because it looks like they're going to be very pro EU and NATO in getting involved in all of that, and that would be not so good for them on there. But they have been actually backing off on pro-Russian support, or with the previous prime minister I saw also. Yeah.
I'm not a big specialist in Moldovan politics, unfortunately.
No. Yes.
But I think it's a logical process because people who support Russia have never been to Russia usually.
Mhm.
I mean people on the West, and people who were to Russia, they don't really like to live like people in Russia. Because if you want to see how they truly live, you gotta visit places like Voronezh or I don't know, Izhevsk, Omsk. Omsk is like comparing to Omsk, Detroit is Las Vegas, basically. Omsk was one of the, oh my god, it's not like the worst place, okay, because there's also Ussurisk, which is even worse, but it's just a good example of the quality of life in Russia, because that's usual place, like
Right.
usual city in Russia.
Yeah.
Everything 50 kilometers away from Moscow is basically a wasteland. I can tell because I've been to Moscow in like exactly 1 year prior to the Revolution of Dignity, and I don't really like to to recall those days. So people who support Russia, they've never been there. They never talked
Right.
their language on Russian streets and things like that.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting experience because you can literally be beaten up by some, I don't know, far right or far left, for some communist for speaking English, because if you speak English means that you like you are American or
Right.
English or
Yeah.
English Nazi. If you speak German, you're dead already,
Right.
like instantly. Okay. If you speak Italian, you understand. If you speak Japanese, oh my god, don't even try. And again, because during the I think it was between the wars when Japanese fleet completely eliminated Russian fleet. It was a great story, by the way.
Yeah.
And things like that. So people don't realize that if they call Ukrainians Nazi, they gotta visit Moscow and try speaking their native language on a Russian street. They will learn what Nazism really is instantly.
Yeah, because the pushback is so great. And I think, and not to get too politically involved in what with the Moldovan, but very simply for everybody, when Moldovan actually speaks out about their airspace being used and calls upon the Russian ambassador to answer for that loudly and in public. This is a former Soviet part of a Soviet the nation prior, and they're not anymore, right? But they've been friendly, kind of tentatively, but now they're speaking out and they're saying, no, you can't use the airspace. Like, what was that? That's a violation. And also, Russia does not want someone that was associated with Russia to be part of the EU, because they're not. They don't want that at all, and they are leaning heavily towards it. And it's part of the change politically there. One of their missions, also, they said loudly that it's going to be peace and stability, and joining the EU. These are the prime focuses of the new administration. So there's tension here, but I think that's only speaks in good for Ukraine. Because the more that they push back on Russia, that no, you're not going to use us, to do this, we've got opinion about it. We're not going to be quiet anymore. That was good. And that's why I say with Romania, actually, I was disappointed that they actually also didn't say, no, not our space. You better find a direct line, because we ain't having this. You can't inadvertently tie us to this anymore.
Currently there's this situation when EU is very, very active about Russian terrorism, and they don't have other choice, because if European country is not member of NATO, it's that there's a threat, and this country is basically in danger. The only countries that shouldn't fear anything are those countries that are NATO members, basically. Everybody else in the EU, they realize that what happened in Ukraine, which wasn't even supposed to happen, right, in the first place, can easily happen in their country. And that's why EU provides such a huge support to Ukraine. And that's why they're so active in this regard, because they know that they're not in NATO. That's why they gotta do something, right, to make sure they have tomorrow. So that's one thing. And regarding Russians, I wanted to mention like opinion makers, like people like like Steven Seagal, or people like, I think, James Cameron. He also was among those, people like this former chief of former member of Deep Purple, Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd, yes, yes, he speaks out a lot. Yes.
So if it's an opinion maker, he will have a lot of benefits in Russia, of course. If it's like a common, ordinary man or woman, they will be in trouble. And again, this will be used for the Russian benefit, for benefit of Russian propaganda, because look what they did. Like, look what we did to them. Okay. I remember there was Gerard Depardieu. At some point, he moved to Russia because he was so angry at his government in France, at all the taxes and stuff like that. He thought that it's easier in Russia, of course, because like they don't have such huge taxes and stuff. So he moved to Russia. He was assigned as some honorable member of Russian theater. And I think he moved out very fast, because like he realized that like you gotta run to survive. One of the craziest moments is one of the craziest cases is Snowden. Snowden discovered that special services in the United States are spying after people, which breaks which violates freedom of speech and all the freedoms of people and foundations of democracy. That's why he ran away to a country known for being democratic and respecting freedom of speech and other freedoms. I think the dude is regretting his choice so bad right now. But there's no way back.
I got a couple of supers I can jump in here with, and then I think we can get the audience in and whatnot a bit more as well here. So I've got Ellie J has become a new member, Shills Master. Ellie J, welcome to the family. Awesome. And then we have Samantha W. Hey, Sam. We've got New Zealand 20. It won't let me type what I want to say. So I'll say something positive, but less fun instead. And she did the whole thing here. Let me put it up on the screen here. Where is it? There it is. She did the whole thing trying to get me to stop on my tongue and all that, but Google Translate saves me. Ukraine equals the nation of the indomitable. Very much. Good shout, Sam. Thanks. Where are we here now then? I think we were going over to Dave for a couple of you. Oh, no, Commander 401 was waiting, and then we're over to Dave. There we go.
Right.
Operator Starsky, I don't remember offhand what the roads are like in Russia, but from what I understand, China builds more roads in a month than that great world power that the Soviet Union used to be. Is that? I think that's true. And just to let everyone know, when you're talking about the Russian influencers, they've already got their claws deep into America.
As for their roads, they have this joke that says chief of Russian state road building company has a dilemma. He cannot drive his Porsche 911 down those roads that are like completely impossible to to use with a car with such a small clearance, because the asphalt for those roads is basically his Porsche. So that's like a typical joke there. And as for Russian influencers, it's of course they don't use people that are famous in Russia like Lavrov. They stuck at convincing other people. They keep using this method of like denying obvious facts, denying everything, basically what they were taught in their schools in KGB. But instead they use American opinion makers. They use German opinion makers. Like in every country they have those. And those opinion makers base their propaganda on Russian propaganda. So they basically copy paste stuff from Russian websites, from their resources, and they bring those to American people, like Schindler Institute, for example, very famous for spreading Russian fakes. Actually, like there's a lot of there's like a huge list of those.
The NAR, they're spreading Russian propaganda through the churches, and they deny reality in the scriptures they're supposedly reading right in front of their face. This is name a few.
Yeah, there's there are influencers in different countries. There's this so-called Aussie Cossack, something like that, in Australia even. That recently there was a scandal when he punched some old gentleman, and I think he was arrested for that or something like that. And because of the hype, he used this hype to become even like more popular in the media and things like that. Completely disgusting person, by the way. That's the idea. It's not like, it's not like Russians retranslate their propaganda themselves. They had Russia Today for that purpose, but after it was closed, they start using those opinion makers that were basically like hired.
They're all miserable losers.
Yeah.
True. Oh, Starsky, last week, you gave us a really good examples of how Russia was using propaganda, not only like terrorizing their own people, but trying to get a better face out there to their people first, as far as how good they're doing and how, they're supportive they are. I saw this recent article in regards to furs being given to the wives of dead Russian soldiers. So there was a big media thing and they did a whole big splash, and then out of the under the wing, they asked one of the wives and apparently they took them back, saying they were faulty and that they had to replace them. And then later, like, oh, it was a mistake that you got them in the first place. But what struck me is it was being reported. It was being reported out there through Russian lines, through actual Russian reporters coming out, that there may be a little bit pushback. Are like, really? You're going to use us as the face of how great you're doing and then slap us like that? Like, that's not right. Which to me showed an even more of a weakening in what you were expressing to us as parents, with people no longer actually accepting these tactics of what's going on. It becoming much more obvious. It's much more obvious out here to the west when we're looking at it. And so it goes like an article like that goes everywhere. Goes everywhere. But I looked at the sources. I looked where it came from. The original stories came right from Russia on it.
I know that they came from Russian social media, and in Russian social media, of course, they have some people who don't afraid to speak. As for that woman, I think that we have to check if she's still alive.
Yeah, they're not naming her, but there was only so many people in the pictures in Sefi. So I would be checking on all of them actually, because because they said it was like they talked to the one woman, reported it, and then there was like 3 or 4 women that were contacted afterwards that claimed yes, their furs were recalled. First making one statement that they were faulty and then making, oh, you got it by accident. However, let's remember that all of those wives had dead Russian soldiers for husbands. Okay.
Yeah, but they don't. They cannot really speak about it again because we don't know their names. It can easily be claimed, and I would do that. That again, like we cannot confirm this information because we don't have facts. And if it happened, Russia can, knowing what Russians would say in this case, that's exactly what they would do. They would say like, it's like it's like Ukrainian counter-propaganda.
Yeah. One of the groups that's speaking out of it is a feminist anti-war group in Russia, right there in Russia, that took a hold of the story and was speaking out for the women. So hopefully there's enough publicity to protect their lives, because actually their images are out there and people are going to be looking for them. So hopefully they'll be okay, because there are some larger groups that are looking at it. And I was actually fascinated to find out that there was a feminist anti-war group in Russia. That just seemed odd to me. Because of what we hear. I was actually quite pleased to hear that there was reporting coming from a group like that. I don't know if it's one person in a basement somewhere or if it's large, because I can't find anything on it, but it was encouraging to see those statements coming out from them.
Yeah, there's definitely a small number of decent people there that help Ukrainian people that were kidnapped in Ukraine and brought forcefully to Russia, for example. But they are not public. They keep low profile because they can be killed literally or thrown into prison. But there are such people, again, not a big number of them, unfortunately, and we don't really let's say we don't really count on Russian, not like Russian supporters Basically, yeah, we don't really count on Russian supporters except for those who actually help us.
Mhm.
For a very simple reason, because in Russia, a lot of people they have this imperialism deeply
Mhm.
implanted into them, and they may not support Putin for what he does. At the same time, they definitely don't support Ukraine. It's so easy. When if Russian person has this belief that was popularized back in the Soviet times, that all the people of Soviet republics, like Ukrainians, Belarusians, Russians, are the same people of the same origin, like same blood, same origin, basically. If they believe that we are the same nation, then like this person is lost, because the only reason this myth was developed was to to make lower races like Ukraine, like Belarus, like Uzbeki, like Kalmyki, Buryati, to want to become Russians. That was the only reason. And that's the only reason why a lot of people in Russia still believe in this. So when they don't support Putin for killing their brotherly nation, like people representatives of their brotherly nations, like Ukraine, at the same time they consider Ukraine as part of their empire. Not Putinist empire, but any other empire. Again, that Kots or Katz, that Russian oppositioner, same stuff. A lot of people like him for what he says about Putin, but at the same time, they completely miss the fact that he doesn't support Ukraine at all. He wants to become next Putin, basically. There was this woman, Ovsyannikova, the one who protested on Russian live TV with that banner. Again, a lot of people don't realize that on Russian TV, nothing happens unexpectedly. Everything on Russian TV is freaking staged. Everything, even this.
It's really bad, isn't it? Holy God!
Yeah,
they take it so far.
Yeah, and currently, Russia has a very good influencer, very good opinion maker that people can trust, because she's now a refugee, right? She left Russia, but she keeps spreading a lot of messages, right? So soon we will hear a lot of interesting facts from her.
I got a super chat to come in with, and then a big shout out to do as well here. Got something cool from Sam W. But we got Dusty River in for a $20 super chat. Big thanks there, Dusty. And he says, "Chin up, Starsky. It's coming. This insanity will not stand." I fucking hope you're right. And then we also have a big shout out here. Samantha W there in the chat. She put together a really great list, and it's a whole whack of links that you can look through and pick from to help support Ukraine. So I'm dropping this in the chat right now. Yeah, it's a Google Doc, and periodically it'll get updated with even more and more. So keep it bookmarked. This will be a very good resource for everybody. So here, I'm going to drop that in again. There's the link again. And yeah, Samantha W put this together. It's awesome.
Is Sam in the chat? Are we able to share that through our other networks? Is she okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Like,
awesome.
yeah, spread this around, and the link is done up, so it's a viewer only Google shared doc, so everybody can just have it, no problem.
Wonderful.
Yeah, good work on that for sure, Sam. Thank you very much. And let's see here. We should get a couple of questions in from viewers and head over to Dave quick to make sure that we got our balance for the show in.
Sure. There's one from Lacramental, Operator Starsky. What is your opinion of rising tensions between Belarus and Poland? Poland shut the border, correct?
I don't know regarding the border, but those tensions started, I think, almost 2 years ago with that crisis with immigrants. The immigrants that wanted to break through the border to Belarus, to Ukraine. I remember that period of time because my brigade also participated as law enforcement in that area, and it was a it was really interesting because my brigade was located in a corner, right, between two countries. There was Poland, there was Belarus, and we would wave to our Polish colleagues across the border. They would wave back, like normal people. We could speak and exchange some, phrases and whatever. Belarusians weren't seen at all. They were hiding and observing us from in our language we call it secret, which means hidden observation position. Okay, military observation position, and they were observing us from those positions, like as if they were already our enemies, and it was very uncomfortable feeling. So it already started there. I remember this funny video when this Polish soldier was shouting in Russian, "Hello, neighbor!" Oh no, he was shouting in English, like "Hello, neighbor," and the Belarusians will be like "F you,"
Good stuff. There's one from what who asks, I have a question. Did Starsky meet Artarehi today? What is he doing in Ukraine now?
Okay, so you probably remember last summer this Estonian organization called Leaf 99 passed us. They delivered us a truck for our anti-air boys, and this year they visited my boys here, and they delivered another truck, and of course I met Arthur. It was so cool because he was first foreign YouTuber that I met. I'm not counting Johnny FD because we can meet every day with Johnny FD and hey, have some sushi together. But I'm talking people that otherwise, if not the war, we could meet either in Ukraine or in their country, but it's impossible because I cannot leave. Arthur was actually the first YouTuber that came from abroad and that I met in person, so it was really cool. And he arrived together with those guys from Leaf 99. Ragnar is the chief master of all this. He organized those people. There's not only Estonians but also Americans. I think there were people from Belgium, people from the UK, Ireland, and they brought us the truck. We did a small tour around Hostomel Airport. I showed my kit aircraft to Arthur. He said it won't fly. So that's the story. But I'm very, very happy that we met, and actually I brought them to McDonald's, by the way.
Nice.
So I had cheeseburgers today.
Oh, that's cool.
Does
yeah.
that bring us on to our McDonald's KFC debate that we've been teasing for the past hour and a half?
Oh, that could be the
Sure.
case.
Guys, I cannot express just how happy I was today, because it was like, meeting a person that you could not meet otherwise. Like it was like meeting a friend or a member of your family that you haven't seen for like years. Because this war is something that separates us, basically us, the Shills, me and you, and it's horrible. And it was so cool. I was so happy. I woke up with this thought that, oh my god, I'm meeting my friends in like an hour.
Wow. That and a
love
cheeseburger,
it.
what a way to have a day. I mean, that's like awesome. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
I agree. Soon
Stop
we'll.
pretending to be American, for God's sake, Claire. We know.
I can't
You
help.
went straight for a stereotype. You
Oh,
did.
you're just jealous. I'm doing so well over here instead of over there.
Oh,
Like,
cheeseburgers. It's racist. It's
hey, you got
racist.
no, it's not. You eat cheeseburgers in England. What are you talking about? Where do you think we got it from? Jeez. Hi. Like you're like picking on the little kid in the block over there, England. Like, knock it off. Stop. Anyway, sorry.
Darn
about that.
Brits and their cobbled streets and
I
stuff.
know.
Gee whiz.
It's just you make it too easy, Dave. You make it too easy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're coming up on the double hour mark here. So, does anybody want to get anything in before we hit buttons and do all that fun stuff at the end? I think we got Commander. All right.
Everyone, remember, stay away from the Russian propaganda or you'll turn into Daniel Pratt, a miserable putz who looks to Vladimir Putin to reveal the flat earth while huddling around his fucking water heater.
Yeah, 401's not wrong. Oh man. Coming up soon on our Friday show, we'll do Daniel Pratt as the idiot of the week, just so you can see this guy. Holy, it's bad. So yeah, at this point, I think it's time to do our big shout out again. Make sure that you're pressing your local politicians and whatnot. Talk to any agency in government that you can and that you can put pressure on to make sure that everybody's doing the most they can to get the support in for Ukraine. This kind of shit really matters. We'll get Sam's list of great places to donate money and whatnot towards Ukraine in the chat there. There we go. And just keep it in the forefront of your mind. There's always going to be little opportunities when you can get that extra little nod of support in and make sure we're all doing what we can. We're going to turn it right over here to Operator Starsky to give you some final thoughts on the show, and then we'll all say our goodbyes. Mr. Starsky.
Thank you so much. As always, big pleasure to see you guys and to see our viewers. Thank you so much for your questions and for your support. Mentioning Arthur actually makes me a bit sad now because I don't know how many time is gonna pass before I will be able to meet you guys and other friends from other countries. But I hope that it will be possible very, very soon, even though it will not. So thank you so much, and thank you very much for your support.
Yeah, we can't wait until we can have a Shills family gathering with you, buddy. It's going to be awesome. On that note, remember, keep the pressure up out there. Slava Ukraini, everybody, and Hero Slava, because the heroes will prevail. Let's say goodnight to all the fellow babies out there, everybody. Good night.
Good night. Thank you,
Slava.
Starsky.
Good night.
Fuck you, poo.
Oh.
It's over. Go home.